Chapter 10 and Chapter 11. On their row of cotton the next day, Julilly and Liza kept their heads low and didn't talk. They worked hard, filling and refilling the big basket at the end of their row with soft, white cotton bowls from the gunny sacks slung about their necks. They didn't want to anger Sims. When they saw Lester or Adam, they pretended not to notice them. There was no more Canada talk in the long cabin where they lived. At night when the others slept, they tried to sleep too. "We need to build up our strength," Liza told Julilly. "We need all the sleep we can get." Julilly couldn't seem to keep her feelings tucked inside as Liza did. Her heart jumped like a scared rabbit. Everything around seemed sharp. The fireflies flickering turned to hot, bright sparks. Grasshoppers scraped the air when they leaped. Their little eyes bulged. Droning cicadas cackled and cackled and cackled. "Keep prayin'," Liza told her. She did. The two girls began storing things away on a high dark shelf of the cabin: extra hoe cakes, their winter shoes. Massa Ross promised to find the boys' clothes. Lester would have the scissors to clip their hair. On the night before leaving, they would stuff their Crocker sacks with the few belongings that they owned and hang them over their backs as knapsacks. The heavy dank heat of August pressed down on the Riley plantation. Thick air hung over everything, filled with magnolia fragrance and the crazed whine of mosquitoes. Sweat trickled over the face of the angry Sims. He whipped at the old and the young without reason. Misery was everywhere but on the cool greenness and the pillared whiteness of the big house. The big house, poised, serene and stately, ignored the slave quarters. On Saturday, there were puffs of clouds in the sky. The flies stung and swarmed, as before a rain. Julilly and Liza watched with fear. If a storm blew up, would they go? If the clouds piled high, could they see the North Star? All day long they picked in the cotton fields. There was no sun and the air was windless. Before weighing started in the late afternoon, Lester appeared with Mr. Ross. The kindly gentleman was as calm and neatly dressed as on the first day of his arrival. This time his bag for birds bulged with specimens. "Ah, there you are again, Mr. Sims," he called out with a jovial smile. "I've had an excellent day. There are unbelievably rare and beautiful birds in this great land." Sims looked with disdain at the bag of specimens. Julilly watched Lester. With a quick look, he moved his head slightly up and down 3 times. They would go. Even if it rained and the clouds blotted out every star, they would go. Julilly lifted her head and stood tall and straight. This was the last time she would stand shaking and groveling before Massa Sims, waiting for him to weigh her basket of stamped-down cotton. This was the last time Liza would be whipped and kicked like some worn-out dog. The two girls walked one behind the other down the path from the cotton fields to the slave quarters. They were silent, but their thoughts were a cord binding them closer and closer together. When night came, a twisting wind blew the clouds away. It swirled and tussled through the tall pines and then died in some distant field. The slaves grumbled. Rain would have given them a day of rest from the heat and the fields. For Julilly, Liza, Lester, and Adam, it was a blessing straight from the Lord. The Big Dipper appeared above them, as faithful as the rising sun, and the North Star sparkled. "The North Star's been polished by the wind and the rain," declared Julilly to Liza as they hurried to the sleeping cabin before the other girls arrived. They stuffed their meager supplies into the sturdy Crocker sacks, rolled them tight, and covered them with the blanket rags on the floor. Then they lay down and put their heads on top of the pile. "Close your eyes like you're already asleep," Liza murmured to Julilly as the other slave girls began to drift through the open door. There was little talk, for the day had been long and hard. Julilly felt for Liza's bony, rough hand. Slowly bodies fell silent all over the room, and the night sounds took over. Julilly found it hard to keep still. Her legs wanted to twist about. Her arms felt like flinging themselves upwards. She clamped her teeth together to keep from shouting, "Let's go, Liza. Let's go." She squeezed her friend's hand. The return pressure calmed her. No matter what happened, no matter if Massa Riley got bloodhounds to chase them, she would help Liza, and Liza would help her. And, above all, Liza seemed certain that the Lord was on her side this time. Julilly almost relaxed into sleep when the whippoorwill song sounded faintly 3 times. The girls lifted their heads slowly, quietly reached for their blankets, and soundlessly walked from the cabin door. Lester was standing by the cypress trees as before. They followed him along the roundabout path in the woods, but this time he went faster and there were more twists and turns. Julilly knew why. If bloodhounds began sniffing their trail, it would take them longer to wind around the trees. Masa Ross stood as last time, splendidly dressed and neatly combed and brushed. He didn't seem fearful, even though Liza had told Julilly that he could be hanged for helping them escape. His filled-out chest and big stomach seemed to give him strength. Adam was there, sitting on the ground, waiting and tense, fox-like, ready to spring. But there was no sign of Ben. Masa Ross asked them to stand close around him. His voice was lower and softer than before. He clasped each of their hands and said, "The difficulties and dangers of this route and the inevitable pursuit for weeks by human foes and possibly bloodhounds require the exercise of rare qualities of mind and body. Each one of you has these. You have foresight and great courage." Julilly liked the sweep of his fine words, even though she couldn't understand all of them. Quickly, however, he changed his style. He looked about the circle of trees and listened for many minutes to the strange night sounds. When he spoke next, only the four of them could possibly hear. "You will start at midnight," he said. "Then everyone will be asleep. I have given Lester a watch so that he will know when the time comes. Make it to the swamp just ahead and wade through the low water in your bare feet. This will kill the scent of tracks. Bloodhounds lose their scent in water." He paused again for a brief moment to listen. "Tonight you will follow the great Mississippi River north. It will guide your feet and the North Star above will guide your eyes." He began talking more quickly. The moon was nearing the height of its climb across the sky. "By all means, stay together. Lester will be your guide. Trust him. I have given him many directions. You will travel by night and sleep by day. When you cross the border into Tennessee, I will be there. Pretend you don't know me and don't be astonished at my face, for my beard will be shaved." He stopped talking and handed each of them $2 bills, a knife, and some cold meat and bread. To Julilly and Liza, he gave a pair of pants and a shirt. "Change these after you cross the swamp," he said. "Let your old clothes float on the water. The slave hunters might think you have drowned. Lester has scissors to clip your hair short." He shook hands with each of them, clasping them tightly. "Now I must go back to the big house. Tomorrow I leave for another mission in Columbus, Mississippi. Bless you." He walked swiftly away from them through the shadow-filled forest. "Masa Ross is a good man." Julilly spoke for all of them. When they could no longer hear his footsteps, Julilly, Liza, and Adam turned to Lester. "Put everything he gave you in your crocker sack and fasten it to your back," he said. There was no expression on Lester's face, but Julilly saw fear and excitement in his eyes. He looked at the watch, round and smooth in his hand. It was time to go. "No one is huntin' for us tonight," Lester said. "We got to cover a lot of ground." Julilly glanced at Liza. Her head was down, and her back was bent, which meant that it was already hurting her. "I'm gonna walk by Liza," Julilly stated firmly. "We've agreed to help each other. You take the rear, then Adam." Lester seemed to agree, and they started off. The ground was dry and soft for a stretch, and then the wetness came. The lank swamp grass whipped their legs and their feet sank deep into the oozing mud beneath. Julilly grabbed a drooping willow branch with one hand to keep her steady. With the other hand, she held Liza's arm, guiding the bent girl along beside her. Julilly was grateful for the soft moonlight. It illumined dead branches jutting from the water and water knees protruding from the tall swamp cypress. Twice, she felt the shell of a turtle slip under her feet. "I hope those old alligators and water moccasins are sleepin' tonight like they are dead," Julilly whispered to Liza. "Don't put your mind on things such as that," Liza whispered back. "And don't forget, no bloodhound can smell our scent through this old swamp water." At last the ground became more solid. Then it was dry again. Now was the time for Julilly and Liza to change into their boys' clothes and throw the worn tow shirts on top of the swamp water. Lester quickly clipped their hair with scissors from his knapsack. There was no time at all to giggle over their changed appearance. Lester was impatient to go on. Already they could hear the flow of the great Mississippi River. None of them had seen it before, but Masa Ross had told them how it would sound and how it would be muddy and fast-flowing and how they would walk north along its banks away from the running current. When they came to the shores of the river, they stopped. It was an awesome sight. As far as they could see, mud-black water rolled past them, broken now and then with eddies and splashes that caught silver from the moonlight. Adam bent down and eased his hand into the water. "It's warm and gentle-like," he smiled. "It holds no harm for us, and I smell catfish in the wind that blows right out of it." "That's good to know, Adam." Lester paced nervously along the shore, looking upstream. "We'll remember about those fish later. Tonight we have bread and cold meat for our meal." He started walking ahead through the dry canebrakes and tangled shrubs, expecting the others to follow. Julilly watched Liza hunched against the trunk of a sheltering willow. Her face showed pain. "We're going to rest a bit, Lester," Julilly stated. "And Liza and I are going to have a piece of our bread and a drink of that catfish smell-in water." Lester waited ahead of them on a dry log. Adam cooled his feet in the rushing river. Liza closed her eyes gratefully, accepting the piece of bread and gourd of water that Julilly offered her. It was a short rest. "We're ready now." Julilly stood and reached for Liza's hand, pulling her slowly to her feet. "I'm leading us back a ways from the river," Lester called. "The trees are thicker and the brush is thinner." They walked on as before, Lester in the lead, Julilly and Liza between them, and Adam behind, humming softly and making a rhythm for their steps. There was no stopping now. The running waters of the Mississippi filled their ears, and the North Star gleamed above them. Not until the night began melting into the black earth and a streak of pink rimmed the eastern sky did Lester stop. The giant trunks of 2 fallen pines blocked their path. Underneath the solid logs was a rippling brook of clean water, and beside it a hollow place almost hidden by the rotting limbs. "This is where we eat and where we sleep," Lester yawned, finally exhausted. The others agreed. They ate slowly, putting aside a portion for the next day's meal. Julilly passed her gourd from one to the other. The water they dipped up with it was cold and sweet, and there was plenty. "Adam and I will take turns staying awake on guard until sunhigh." Lester's eyes followed the widening pink strip along the sky. "Then, Julilly, you and Liza will watch until sundown." "Thank the Lord that we've had one safe night." Liza bowed her head briefly. "I ask you, God, keep special watch on us tomorrow when Massa Sims finds out we are gone and starts out looking for us." The others were silent. Julilly and Liza crawled into the hollow place beneath the logs and slept. They were too exhausted to say a word. At Sinhai, when Lester shook Julilly's shoulder, she sat up frightened and confused. Had she overslept? Was Massa Sims ringing the morning bell on the plantation? Why were her feet so sore and bruised? Then she saw Lester's drawn, tired face and she knew where she was. It was her turn to watch, and soon it would be Liza's. Adam lay face down on the soft grass beneath a sheltering willow near the fallen logs. "If you hear any noise at all, you wake me, Julilly." Lester rubbed his long fingers over his eyes to smooth out the tired lines. "You can trust me, Lester," she answered. "And when the sun goes down, we'll eat." Adam caught some catfish, just like he said. He cleaned and skinned them. Lester smiled. "Someone will see if we start a fire to cook them?" Julilly was alarmed. "Massa Ross told me how to do it," Lester answered calmly. He said, "Build a fire in a clear place far away. Then watch. If nobody comes, just lay whatever you catch on the hot coals. When they die down, the fish is ready to eat." Julilly smiled too. She settled herself on a scattering of dry pine needles, behind a tangle of brambles and dead limbs and waited. Liza looked bent and shriveled lying asleep nearby. Twice she moaned, but didn't wake. "I'm strong enough to watch for both of us," Julilly decided. She better rest her aching back. A mockingbird sailed through the sky, then perched above her and sang its own clear song. A gentle deer walked serenely to the river's edge and dipped its head for a long drink. It was peaceful to sit so quiet. But it didn't last. The deer jerked its head upright. It listened and then ran back among the trees. The mockingbird chirped a mixed-up song of many birds, then sped away. Julilly sat tense. Softly at first, and then louder came the cry of baying dogs. "Bloodhounds!" Somehow their scent had been found, and they or other slaves like them were being followed. Lester heard too. He shook at him. Julilly called Liza. "Pack everything in your bags." Lester spoke quickly. "Roll up your pants, and we'll walk north, straight through the middle of this stream. It will kill our scent." Chapter 11. The days and nights strung together for Julilly, Liza, Lester, and Adam like a looped rope without an end. When they heard dogs barking or saw men on horseback, they waded through the water-soaked land of the swamps. When the sun shone, they fell exhausted in some dank shelter or beneath dry canebrakes and thorn-covered thickets. Their clothes were torn and dirty, their feet were scarred and blistered with insect bites, and they were always hungry. One day they found only pecans and hickory nuts to eat. When it was safe and there was time, Adam and Julilly hunted for swamp rabbits and fished for catfish. Liza kindled small fires with flint and spunk that Massa Ross had given her. Lester charted their course. He studied the stars on clear nights, and when it rained and there were clouds, he felt for moss that grew on the north side of the forest trees. "How we gonna know when we've reached Tennessee?" Julilly asked one night as they talked of Massa Ross and how much they needed him. "I can read." Lester spoke bluntly. "No slave I ever heard of was allowed to read." "You was just tellin' a lie, Lester." Liza gave him a dark look and lapsed into one of her sullen moods. "One time my daddy bought himself a spellin' book with some money he saved from sellin' apples. You know what happened when the Massa found him lookin' at that book?" Julilly didn't want to ask. She knew the answer. Liza went on. "Massa grabbed that book and threw it in an open fire. Then he said, 'No nigger of mine is goin' to get uppity and try to read.' He tied my daddy's hands to a tree and stripped him to the waist. Then he got his whip and gave him 50 lashes. I had to watch. His blood ran all over the ground. I loved my daddy. It's no lie. I can read." Lester stood up and turned away from the three doubtful faces. On the Henson plantation, one of the house slaves could read, and Massa Henson knew. "He taught me to read, and the Massa knew that too. He just made us promise never to tell anybody, not even Missy Henson." They sat for a moment on a dry log near the muddy banks of the Mississippi. They ate cold fish which had been cooked before sundown. "Soon we'll cross into Tennessee," Lester said. "I'll see a sign beside the river when we get there," Massa Ross said. "Then we wait until night, maybe 2 nights. Massa Ross will come with a cart on the nearest road. We listen for 3 calls of the whippoorwill, and then we meet him. He might not come." Adam spoke gently. Usually he was silent. When he did speak, the others listened carefully. "Why you say that, Adam?" Julilly asked. "Adam's right," Lester answered quickly. "He might not come. If something happens to him, he promised to send another man. How we gonna trust a man we've never seen before?" Liza was bent over, resting her head on her knees. She was too tired to look up. "There's a password," Adam said again very softly. "We say to this man who gives the bird call, 'Friends with a friend.' He answers the same thing, and then we trust him. Friends with a friend." Julilly repeated the password to herself over and over again. A mean, hateful man would never make up such words, she decided. She would trust whoever said it. "I don't trust no white man," Liza muttered to herself. The stars were bright that night, and there were only the night sounds of lapping water, croaking frogs, and the hollow, chilling hoot of an owl. They walked near the river. Julilly locked Liza's arm through hers. She could bear her friend's weight as well as her own. The long night walks were making her legs stronger. But Liza grew thinner and weaker. Lester, especially, was uneasy with her. Lester won't slow down for nobody. Julilly knew this in her heart. Lester will fight and protect us from slave catchers, but he won't slow down. Julilly listened to the plodding steps of gentle Adam behind her. "Adam and I will carry her if she gets more sickly," Julilly reassured herself and walked steadily forward along the path that Lester made for them. It was still dark when the 4 of them came at last to a sign printed on a large high board beside the river. Lester read aloud, "Tennessee." They stopped beside it. The open road settled far enough into the canebrakes so that anyone passing by would never guess they were there. 2 men on horseback galloped by, one on either side of the road. The moonlight outlined their figures. One of them was fat and carried a whip, the other one had a gun. The 4 slaves sat immobile as stunned rabbits until the sound of hoofbeats disappeared. Adam was the first to speak. "That fat man sure did look like Sims." "He could be Sims," Lester agreed. "The way he beat his horse and waved his whip made me wonder." "We'd best stay right where we are for a long time," Liza cautioned. Julilly heard another noise. It was the clatter of wagon wheels. It might be Maseras. If the fat man was Sims and he turned around and rode back, he would recognize him. The 4 of them shared the same thought without speaking it. They moved farther back into the canebrakes. The wagon came closer. When it reached the Tennessee sign, it stopped. There was silence. Then, 3 soft calls of the whippoorwill filled the air. It was their signal, but they had to be certain with the possibility of Sims so near. Julilly knew at once what she had to do. "Listen," she whispered to the others, "if it's somebody tricking us from the Riley plantation, they'd right away know Lester and Adam and maybe Liza with her bent-up back. They wouldn't know me. I'm just a big, tall nigger boy the way I'm dressed now. I'll go first." Lester hesitated, then nodded his approval. Julilly took a deep breath like she was going to jump into the Mississippi River and walked into the open. She stood at the edge of the road and spoke hoarsely. "Who is you?" Her voice quivered. She couldn't risk revealing the password. "Friends with a friend," the man on the wagon answered. It wasn't Maseras, but this man knew the right password. Liza, Lester, and Adam came from the shadows. The man relaxed the reins and leaned over the side to see them better. He was brisk and small. It was hard to see his head because a wide-brimmed hat covered most of it. His lips smiled kindly above a white looped-over collar. "You are the friends of Mr. Ross," he said simply. "The good man has been put in prison in Columbus, Mississippi, and we pray no harm will come to him. I've been sent in his place." "Oh Lord, help him," Liza prayed aloud. "Massa," Lester interrupted, "2 slave hunters just passed by this way going north. We think they are from our place, the Riley plantation. Then we must hide you at once and talk later." The little man jumped to the ground. He threw back a large canvas that covered the wagon. Underneath was a thick layer of fresh straw. "You must crawl under the straw toward the center." He spoke swiftly like someone familiar with his task. "Then I will cover you with the canvas. If we are stopped, remain silent. I will do the talking." The kindly smile remained on his lips. Julilly and Liza crawled in first and lay close together. Lester and Adam followed. It became pitch black when the little driver pulled the canvas over them. "I can't see your face," Liza whispered. Julilly didn't answer. She was grateful that Liza was there. She wondered about the small man who drove the wagon. Was he one of the Quaker abolitionists? Would the slaveholders catch him too and put him in jail with Maseras? "Don't talk at all," Lester cautioned all of them. The wagon jogged along the road. The straw was soft and sweet-smelling, but Julilly's stomach ached with hunger. There had been no time that night to hunt for food. Even if the little man had bread for them, they couldn't stop now to eat it. The rocking wagon and the soft hay tempted Julilly to sleep, but hunger kept her awake, even though her tired legs and arms felt like they were sleeping separate from the rest of her. The clopping sound of men on horseback and a sudden jolt of the wagon unsettled the 4 fugitives. Lester whispered, "Don't move even if the canvas is pulled back. If they find us, jump over the side of the wagon and run for the woods. They won't shoot with their guns, they want us alive." Julilly and Liza locked their arms together. A loud, harsh voice called out, "You Quaker abolitionist, pull your wagon over by the side of the road. We're huntin' this road for runaway slaves from the Riley plantation. We figure this is the way they'd be comin' toward the north." The voice didn't belong to Sims. Julilly said a grateful prayer for this. But it was someone sent by Sims, and he was looking for the 4 of them. "The devil with you Quakers and your wide-brimmed hats. Nigger lovers, that's what you are, the whole parcel of you." The gruff voice came closer. There was the scuffling sound of 2 horses. Julilly knew it was the 2 men they had seen moments before. "What do you want of me?" the small driver of the wagon asked clearly in a strong voice. "We want to know if you've seen 4 slaves, 2 men and 2 girls along this road tonight?" "No." The Quaker didn't hesitate. I haven't seen two men and two girls any place along this road. It's a lie he's tellin', Julilly thought, and then checked herself. He wasn't lying, he had seen two men and two boys running out of the woods. That's what he thought he had in his wagon. Mr. Ross was a smart man to have them dress in boys' clothes. I don't trust one word you stealin' abolitionists say. The man on the horse began talking louder. Did you know that the new Fugitive Slave Act, just passed by Congress, lets the slave owners retake human property in any state, north or south? I am well aware of this cruel and unjust act, the wagon driver replied quietly. Unjust, you say? Now the slave catcher was shouting. People like you can be put in jail and fined $1,000 for just giving a fugitive a meal. Julilly shuddered. How could they ever escape? They could even be hunted now in the free states of the North. We better see what this farmer has in his wagon. The other horsemen finally spoke. Julilly heard their driver jump from his seat to the ground. You can see that it's hay I carry to my cousin in the next town. The Quaker continued to speak softly as he slowly pulled back the canvas from a corner of the wagon. Julilly gripped Liza's arm. She didn't move, but she did open her eyes. Praise the Lord, it was still dark. It is hay. The second horseman spoke quickly. We'd better be riding back to the river before daylight breaks. Those niggers hide themselves in the daylight. They rode away without another word. The little driver pulled the canvas back over the wagon. He leaned over it. When daylight breaks, he said to the four slaves who lay tense and shaken under the hay, we'll stop in a deserted barn along the way and have our breakfast.